As usual, I am Dr. Luis Fonseca, U.S. Navy Hospital Corpsman who spent 22 years on active duty. During my tenure on active duty, I was involved in the Battle of Al Nasiriyah on March 23rd of 2003 that ended up costing the lives of 18 of our Marines. Due to my actions on that day, I was also awarded the Navy Cross. Now, as always, please always remember the views and expressions spoke on this podcast are of those individual person and that individual person only. We do not speak for nor do we represent any Department of Defense, Department of War, Department of here, there, and what else not you want to call them. We also do not represent any businesses, companies, organizations. Once again, these views are strictly ours and ours only. With that as well being said, Doc Barry is a licensed psychoanalyst and psychologist, but he is not your psychoanalyst and or psychologist. So, if you feel that you are in distress, if you feel that you are feeling about to harm yourself or somebody else, please do not hesitate to pick up the phone and call 911 and or 988. Please see emergency services as soon as possible as well. If anything comes up on this podcast that might trigger any episodes, we highly encourage you to reach out to your healthcare team and make an appointment in order for you to get a checkup. With that being said, up next is our partner, Nate.
No, I'm Nate Emery. I'm your token grunt. 22 years in the Marine Corps, 33 years in DoD. My two infantry combat tours were in a Desert Storm in Mogadishu, Somalia. And next up is Doc Barry.
Hey, folks, my name is Andrew Barry, also known as Doc Barry. I'm a psychologist and psychoanalyst, and I specialize in working with veterans and first responders of all denominations, including corrections, battling what's known as post traumatic stress disorder. And our guest tonight, I have known for upwards of 20 plus years, 25 years now, something like that. Former Marine, even though there is no such thing, and spent 30 years in corrections and retired out last year. I met him at, as they pronounce it out there, El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas, in El Dorado, Kansas, and was lucky to go over to the cell house and work with him. He's a great listener. He has great instincts and great intuition. He saved me a ton of paperwork, and I got a chance to. It was an eye-opening experience for me. My first job was a diagnostician in a state-run supermax, and that's where I met Van. And between what he was teaching me back then, as well as when he was on the webcast with us the first time, um, a lot of people don't know corrections officers are put on high alert depending on the facility, which is to say, you have to be ready to go in and fight anytime, just about any day or even every day. And Van and I'd be talking about one thing and another, and the tones would go out, and he said, I'll be right back. And he'd go flying out the door. He'd be first one in. And then he'd come back a few minutes later, and we pick up on the discussion. Um, I was newly married at the time. My wife and I hung out with Van, and got a chance to chow, got a chance to fellowship, and equally nasty sense of humor as is my own. And really, really lucky to meet him. Always on hand to answer questions, etc. The one I got a two-parter for you, man.
Yeah.
Only and again, only if you're up to it.
Hmm?
Give us a rundown about what's been happening physically, if you're up to it, but also the first time we did this, I brought the question up with your vigorous permission to do so, and we weren't able to upload it. So I'm going to bring the question up again now that we are going live. Something you said 20 years ago that was just to me, and I'm pretty innocent, let's face it, it was jaw dropping. You said, when I'm out in the yard with the inmates, I know exactly where I stand, and I'm a lot more afraid of administration than the inmates.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I never heard anything that was disturbing to hear. So riff off those two ideas, my man. Welcome aboard. Great to see you. Thanks for doing this with us on short notice. Go ahead, my man.
Absolutely. Happy to. As far as the being more comfortable on the yard than with the administration, and make life is simple. There's very few rules, and as soon as you understand them, just like working with any other people, you know where you stand because you know what they're doing. You know they're trying to get away with something. You know, if you walk in on this, it's going to be a fight. You know, they know that you're going to, or at least for me, they know that if I see it, I'm going to address it. But knowing that going in, you can prepare yourself mentally for it. Whereas with the administration, it's politics. Who's having a bad day? Who's trying to get a promotion? Who did I piss off that the administration likes? Because that list is fairly long, depending on where you go. But the rules were simple, and that was the biggest thing about it. I knew that if I went into segregation, this is how things go. If they don't go this way, we're going to have a mess. You learn your inmates, one by one. I prided myself, even when I was at the county jail here to retire, that when I would work a pod, I could tell you on camera, if you pointed something out, I could tell you what inmates were sitting where. I could give you their names. I could tell you what cells they were in. If you had an inmate on camera that went into a cell, I could tell you who it was, or I could tell you that's not the inmate that belongs there. But knowing your surroundings. And the nice thing about corrections is, for the most part, your surroundings are static. They don't change day to day. So it's not like a street beat, street patrol, something like that. I know where I'm going. I know what's supposed to be there, which makes it real easy to, if you pay attention, it makes it real easy to realize something's off. I think you experienced that with the noise in my cell house, or lack thereof. I would hear something. I know it's on the back half of the cell house, and I know it's on the front half of the cell house. So I just called my control officer on the radio. I said, "This is where it's at. Find it for me," because he had an intercom going into every cell. And he'd call me back in a few minutes. "It's coming from here." Cool. Sergeant Mitchell, we need to address something. But we had intake investigators going on. We had you guys doing your job. We had 5 different departments running in there in that one day room area, but we also had 70 inmates in there in the cells, and they were open door metal cells, or open metal door cells, I guess. And my rule was simple. If I can't hear a mouse fart from 50 yards, you're too loud. And that's it. If you want out of your cell, I'll let you come out. I'll let you clean. I'll let you walk around. As long as you're doing something that benefits us and you're not visiting with nobody, you're good. I'll give you an hour. Don't have to, but it helps me. It helps them. And it helps them understand, if they follow the rules, I'm going to let them do their time. If they don't, go back in your house. I'll get the next guy out. I got 69 other fellows here wanting to get out and do something. So, but that made it comfortable for me, because I knew where I stood. If I went across the yard, I knew the inmates were going to clear the way, because all I would scream is, "Make a hole." They heard the tones go off. They know what's going on. All they're looking to see who's going to run them down so they can get out of the way, because we're not stopping. Because if you're in the way, you're getting a write-up once you get out of the infirmary. We're going to take you down to the hole so you can join the guys we were going to get the fight in. But especially in that facility, as you know, if we went, unless it was a BS call for like chest pains because somebody's just mad they didn't get an extra cookie or something, it was a fight. There was going to be a use of force packet going with it. And that's just the way things worked. And I think the key was just getting the people around me to understand that. Because once you understand that and you accept it, you can be good at that job. If you can't, you're going to fight your way the whole time. I fought with the administration more than I did anything else. Sometimes defending my subordinates, sometimes defending my supervisors. But right's right, wrong's wrong. I don't care what you wear on your collar. We'll deal with that later, but either do it right or just don't do it. We had rules. Everybody has policies. They have rules that you have to follow. And once you get everybody on board, you were in my cell house, things can run smooth. You were there when Bob was on day shift. Things ran smooth for him. But he was the same Hendricks. But he was along the same line of thinking. He was just about 15 years ahead of me in experience, and he was good at what he did. He's the one that asked me to come down there and take over second shift when it got all screwed up and they fired the sergeant that was down there. So, I mean, that turned out good. And it actually ended up being the administration that ended up running me out of that place. I liked the place. I'd have retired there, but we couldn't see eye to eye when it came down to it. So it was time for me to go. And that was just the easiest thing to do.
Mhm.
I could stay there and fight it, but as a staff sergeant, I wasn't going to make any headway against a warden or a deputy warden or a secretary of corrections when I'd already gotten into it with the major. So there wasn't anybody in uniform you can go any higher. So, and
I remember.
and so, yeah, like I said, it was time to go. Looking back now, like you said, my physical issues of late, like we've talked before, come to find out in 2001, I broke my back. And I still did the same job with a broken back for 20 years without even thinking about it. I went to the doctor. They said, you have a bursitis on your hip. You're okay. I did that 3 or 4 times, and then I just decided that I'm going to have to live with it. And then I went, when I was having issues, what was it? Early May. I was having issues. My back went out, and I ended up in the emergency room 3 times in 2 days, and was accused at one hospital of only coming in so that I could get drugs. That was the only reason I was coming to the emergency room, so that I get drugs. Yet my first words coming through the door were, I do not want narcotics. Don't give me any narcs. Whatever you give me here, you have to give me. Okay, whatever. But don't be sending me home with any prescriptions or anything like that. That's not what I want. And turns out that I was septic. And they sent me home and told me to eat some yogurt, Greek yogurt, and I'd be fine. Right. That's kind of the reaction my wife had.
They said that they knew you were septic and then sent you home?
Yes.
Oh.
Because in that hospital, they didn't have any way to, they would have had to ship me out somewhere. And as soon as they do that, small town hospital, as soon as they do that, they don't get any more money.
We'd rather have you die here than fix you somewhere else.
Well, then they'd have to take account that they weren't treating it to begin with. So
Yeah.
we ended up in another emergency room about 30 miles away, and went in, and the doctor came in, and I'm like, so what are we doing here, doc? And he says, oh, we're just waiting for you to find an ICU room for you. For what? So you don't die. I'm like, okay, well, where are we going? He says, we're going to put you in an ambulance. You're not driving up there. So then I spent 2 days in the ICU over that. And that's when they did X-ray, or they did an MRI and they did a CAT scan. As soon as I got up to that hospital, which is a larger hospital in Omaha, and doctor came in the next day and he says, I'm not sure what all you got going on here, but if you didn't know, you've got a broken back and I can fix that. And that's when I found out I had a broken back. So then I ended up having L5S1 fused. So
How'd
we're just
you break
healing
it?
now. What's that?
How'd you break it?
I came off an 81 Goldwing at 85 miles an hour and one hopped it off the rumble strips on my left hip, which is
Wow.
where I got the bursitis, which is all anybody wanted to look at.
I haven't had a broken back, but I understand the SI pain. I had to go to chiropractor for about a year and a half before my SI joints would start moving again.
Oof.
So, yeah, not fun.
There's
There's no way to sit comfortably when your SI joints are jacked up.
No, I blew everything out between the L5 and the S1. There was absolutely nothing there.
Wow.
And it was bad enough that when they went in to do the surgery to fix it, it was go in through the front. They're going to build a cage, put some spacers in there, and then flip me over and then go in through the back and then do the fusion on the backside. That way everything would be more comfortable. But when they went in through the front, the vein that runs up your spinal column over the years had fused itself to my spine. So when they tried scraping that out to separate it, they nicked the vein, lost 2 units of blood. So they got that fixed. So then they just had to go in through the back and do everything they could from the back. So now we're just playing the healing game.
Well, I got a pretty good guess of the emotional agony you've been through because of sleep loss, physical pain, not being able to work, et cetera, et cetera. And that's
Well, I
one of
was
the reasons.
retired before this
Oh,
started.
I just wanted, I just wanted, give you something a little different to do. Maybe this is hopefully coming on with us tonight is a
Oh,
pleasant
mhm.
distraction from all the
Oh,
bullshit.
absolutely.
And also, if it's okay to bring up, Van put his dad in the ground about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that.
When I went down the day, let me see, the day I went to the second hospital, emergency room, and found out that I was going to the ICU. Before we left for the hospital, I found out that day my dad died that day. So
So sorry. to
yeah,
hear
it's,
that.
it's been a rough year. Of course, it started off in January with Zeus, my little dog. I'd had him for 17 and a half years. And he passed in January. And then my dad went in May. So. And then I laid on my back for 3.5 months waiting for surgery. Because they wouldn't let me get up and do anything until I had surgery. But at least now I can get
Wow.
up and I can do chores around the house, and up and down the stairs is my exercise, but at least I'm getting something.
So they immobilized you to prevent you from making it worse, or?
Yeah, they were afraid that
Well-
I was actually going to clip something, because when I went down, it was after doing my garden prep, doing my rototilling. And they said all that jarring from the rototiller is probably what had set it off.
Oh,
So
okay.
they put me on bed rest. I mean, I could get up and go to the bathroom. If I felt good enough, I could get up to go to the kitchen, but I had no balance whatsoever.
That must have
Everything
been
was just-
hard after. Yeah,
Oh.
knowing you've been up for 20 plus years on a broken back, and all of a sudden you can't do anything.
Yeah, I think I've got a dent in my bed from where I was.
Yeah, because like you can't even like put on your shoes or clothes because of that bending over and coming back up, right? If If I remember
Oh no, I'm
correctly.
still on a no bending restriction until the.
Oh wow, you're still on that, huh?
Oh yeah, they had me. Well, I had surgery October 9th, and then they put me on 12 weeks of no lifting, no bending, no twisting
Wow.
after surgery. And I think a lot of that extension on the restrictions was due to what happened with the vein when they tried to fix that.
Right.
So it's like all I can do is try to do what I'm told, because at least they fixed it. At least they did something about it. I mean, they
Yeah.
told me what was wrong. So I told him
Yeah.
my back hurt. He's like, yeah, it's broke.
Hey, and flying off a Goldwing, what more can you ask for, though, right? I mean, honestly, dude, I think all of us here ride in here, right? At one point or another. So we all know the horror stories of a buddy going down and not getting back up. So
Well, I was very thankful for the semi that was behind me, because he actually paid attention to what he was doing and did not run me over.
nice.
He hit his
Good.
brakes when I went down. So
Yeah.
no,
You-
I
you
blew a
know-
rear tire out at 85, and it came off the rim, and that's a shaft drive bike, and it wrapped the
Mm,
tire around the shaft and just locked that wheel up on the rim. So there was no
Wow.
traction or nothing. It was just ice.
yeah, just slipping and sliding. You were just along for the ride.
Yep. And I came to the point where I'm either going to lay it down or I'm going to cartwheel with it, and I'm not a
Yeah.
gymnast. So off we went.
You didn't do your tuck and roll?
Actually, when I hit the ground, yes, I did.
You did.
Absolutely, I did. Absolutely, I did. And at that point, the only thing I could think going through my head was, I hope I don't hit a highway sign.
Yeah, right. I don't know if it was because I saw this picture when I first started writing. So I learned how to write out here in California, in San Diego, which is already bad enough as it is. But I saw a picture, and it was like the point of view of a driver that's inside of a semi truck, and
Mhm.
it says like, and they have like bikes all around the semi truck, right? And they said
Oh.
if you can't see the motorcycle, then the driver can't see you.
Right.
And that picture always stuck in my mind for whatever reason. So anytime I was riding and I'd pull up in front of a big rig, even though like I probably knew they had enough space that they could see me, I would still put my hand up and like point to myself so that
Oh,
they knew so they knew there was a little dude right in front of them.
And you probably had a handful of drivers that were thankful for that.
Oh, okay. I'm not too savvy of the trucker world, but I would hope so. None of them hit me, so that's a good sign.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I enjoyed my riding time. That I had a good time riding bikes, but it wasn't too long after I healed up from that wreck. In fact, my first day back to work at the prison after that wreck was September 11th, 2001.
Whoa.
Oh yeah, no, I woke up to that to get ready for work. And by the time I got to work, it was a mess. We had a whole bunch of fights, bunch of
Wow.
racially motivated fights on the yard. And it's like, this is going to be a long day.
I honestly, and I'm sure the other two guys as well too, but I would be very interesting to know what that work environment was for you on that day. I think we've heard so many different aspects as far as people that were on active duty, people that were on leave, people that joined the military because of 9/11. Even police officers were patrolling the streets, on 9/11. But I don't think I've ever heard, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, we've ever had a guest that was actually at work in corrections when 9/11 happened. And yeah, what did that transpire? Like, you already stated racial fights, but what was the scene like? What was the tension like? Did you have an idea what you were walking into when you were walking into work that day, or
Well,
everything was so new?
prison kind of mirrors society to a certain extent as far as current events go, because of course they have full access. So by the time I got there in the afternoon, everything was already set up. Everything, everybody already knew about everything, and The prison itself was just trying to go through normal operations. But there was a lot of white on brown and black on brown violence. And at that point in time, there wasn't a whole lot of distinguishable about brown. As far as, I mean, if you were walking around and you were a known Muslim, you were a target.
Yeah, depending on where people are from, they can't tell the difference between someone who's Hispanic or who's Middle Eastern.
Correct. So the only thing a lot of these guys had to go by is if they knew they were in a Muslim group, you know, from walking the yard. But yeah, there was several Hispanics that got hit in the gym. In fact, I think that was the night that we had a guy get his lung punctured in the gym with a shank, a ice pick type. We got him taken care of, but I mean that's just a mess. Because you got 80 to 100 people in the gym, and we get a call. In fact, that was, I think I had to play acting lieutenant that night, so I was helping run shift that night. And our office was right off the gym, so when they called the alarm, it's like, wait a minute, I'm in the gym. So, I mean, at least for me, it was a short run.
Now, because of, prison already has a layer of racial tension already as it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Now, because of the events that unfolded on September 11th, did you guys see any different class of people, groups, race of people get together in the commonality of one bad group of people? So against all the brown people, like, the Asians hooked up with with the white people, the blacks stayed to themselves, and everyone was just against whoever was brown. And did that add another layer of complexity for you guys trying to segregate those individual groups?
Really didn't have a whole lot of different groupings. It was more of a watch which groups are watching what groups. Because very few things happen in prison that you don't get clues about if you pay attention to what's going on. If you know the white guys hang out over here in the gym pit, doing their lifting, and you know that the Muslims, for the most part, are over here by the basketball court, and that's not happening, where's everybody at? Something's missing here. And it was more of that. It wasn't necessarily mixing groups to gang up on somebody. The Arab/Muslim groups were highly outnumbered to begin with by any other group except maybe the Asians. So that really didn't so much serve a factor. I understand the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but not so much in prison. If I don't need that enemy to help me, then we're not going to change anything there. It's just a matter of seeing who's being active and who's going on about their normal business, trying to be normal, trying to be status quo.
But
I'm sorry, Nate, real quick. That just made a lot of sense of, like, inside of that institution, the enemy of my enemy is not my friend, because kind of like you said, Van, like, I don't need another fucking enemy.
Right.
It sucks that you guys are getting hammered over there, but it's none of my business. Go ahead,
right.
Nate.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a brings up a good point that some people that are watching might not realize, especially if they're military, don't have an understanding of corrections or law enforcement. But to have to be hyper vigilant all the time like that, and then it's anyways you're like that, and now you've got something that's potentially a catalyst to people acting out. Now you can't even like kind of sit back and just go, okay, this is the regular level of hypervigilance. Now I'm,
Right.
like you said, now I'm really watching for somebody. Where's this guy going? You know, where's this guy that I know that already hates Muslims? Where's he at? You know?
Right.
So I imagine
Exactly.
that makes it impossible to have an easy day when it's like that.
Oh no, for sure. For sure. And you know, like I was talking about before, the more you can know your inmates and know their habits, it's easier to tell when something's not right. You know, if somebody is out here running the track every day, 6 hours a day, and yeah, that actually happens. Um, it's not me. I don't like to run. But and he's not there, where's he at? Why is he not there? What's going to happen on the yard that he doesn't want to be a part of?
That's a hard thing to explain to people. It's not that you want to be hyper vigilant or that you're anticipating something's going to happen because you want it to. It's more about, I'll be damned if I miss something that I shouldn't have missed because I know
Right.
better.
Basically,
That's a hard thing to
and
explain to people.
just throw rough numbers out there because I don't remember the exact staffing patterns, but say you have 18 people available that aren't working in cell houses. So between your supervisors and your yard people and things like that. So you have 18 people trying to figure out what 900 people have got planned. You've got 18 people trying to make sure that everybody inside the perimeter, staff, inmates, contract staff, stay safe and go home. Well, if they're going home. But yet you have 900, that's not their goal. And now you have to figure out
That's
not only how many, but which ones have the opposite goal.
I imagine that's got to be one of the hardest things to teach, much like, you know, in the military, teaching a new person that's never been in combat before. How do you teach them, no, you're looking for this, or, you know it just by something not being there, something being absent that's usually there, or like I said before, something being out of place. Why are these two knuckleheads over here when they're not usually over there? That's got to be a really tough thing to be able to teach somebody until they can do it on their own. Like, how long does that kind of take before somebody starts to get a sense of that on their own?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on how bad they want to do the job. Are you here to make this a career? Do you want to be a good segregation officer? Do you want to be a good yard officer? Or are you looking for a paycheck till you finish school and go on to something else? And if they're there for a paycheck till they finish school to go on to something else, most of them, as far as in uniform officers, there's not a whole lot you can teach them because they're too busy learning something else to go do something else. And most of them I would encourage to go do something else, because if you didn't come here to do this job probably isn't for you.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's not a good correlation based on the level of security you were at, but in all the prison shows that are on, it's amazing sometimes watching some of the COs. They're completely aware that there's cameras everywhere, and they've been added recently, and they still just let things go, and just you can see them catch something that happens, they turn the other way because they don't want to deal with it. And it's like,
oh yeah, that's what
stuff
corrections has
simmer.
come to. I spent my last
Man,
18 years in a county jail, which was a retirement gig for me for the day I walked in. So day I walked in, I had an inmate say, dude, you better check my record if you're going to talk to me like that. And I turned around and looked at him. I said, you might want to check mine on your way to your cell. And I come back the next day and he's like, hey, I talked to some people. I said, yeah, what'd you find out? That I need to be in my cell? Yes, sir. You know.
now for the people that don't know, what level of security were you at when you worked with Doc Barry?
That was Supermax. When I was working with him, it was a Supermax facility, but the reception diagnostic unit, which is where you go to have your inmate number assigned, your first initial this is where you go to figure out what prison we're going to put you in or what security level you're going to be at. So you were 23-hour lockdown when you came to my cell house there. But we
What
had
kind of
people like,
charges? Are they-
you name it, anything you can go to prison for. DUI to capital murder.
Oh, okay. Wow.
We had DUI guys there, and BTK ended up being there. I don't know if you've
Wow.
heard his story.
I haven't heard. I know about the case, but from what was in the news, but I don't know anything about anything after
Another-
that. Wow.
Another serial killer, just a real,
Yeah.
real sick individual.
Now, is this B2K as in bow tie? The bow tie
bind, torture, kill.
or the
Bind,
bind, torture?
torture, kill.
Okay, because
Yep.
I've always known of two, and I've always get them mixed up. But I guess the other one, the bow tie killer that I guess I've always heard about, might be
Okay.
a Mandela effect.
Could be. I think he committed his, and I want to say the 80s, maybe. I think
Right.
is when he committed his murders.
Yeah, that's right. He did it for a while and then he disappeared, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then for that, they think that maybe he had like started a family and lived a regular life, and then once
Mhm.
that was over, went back to his ways.
Well, it wasn't even over. I mean, his kids were grown. I think he got bored because he was no longer folklore. He was no longer relevant because he actually contacted the newspaper, the news
Oh,
agencies.
wow.
And of course, being probably no more technical savvy than I am, said, "Hey, if I email you this, you can't trace my computer, right?" Of course we can't.
The stuff that people, I can't believe that people do stuff today. Like the guy that they just caught for the pipe bombs in Washington D.C. I'm like, really, jackass? You took your cell phone with you? You really don't realize that you could just go buy all the cell phone data and know everybody who was in what place at what moment?
Right.
They just, I can't even believe it. And we have drones up here, part of our law enforcement. There are
Mhm.
people being followed by drones, and they're hiding in the neighborhood, not even realizing that right up above them, the drone is watching the entire thing.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Doc Barry, off top of your head, rough estimate, not asking for a specific, put your degrees on this, but rough estimate, how many of serial killers do you say have that level of I guess would it fall under narcissism where they want that fame? Would it be more than 50%, 75%? Do you have any rough estimate?
I can't give you an estimate,
Okay.
and but I will tell you I will tell you one thing, and I've shared this with Van many times over, and he agreed with me. There is no such thing as a typical inmate.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Sometimes serial killers, those are the ones who want the fame, the publicity, and others don't. Um, there's no such thing as a typical behavior from a quote unquote diagnosis.
Understood.
I can tell you there was one guy there, I can't remember his name, and I'll just give a rough description. He was just like, and Van, maybe you were still there when this guy was around. He was just like the enemy, the arch enemy Two-Face from Batman, which is to
Okay.
say, this part of it just totally untouched, perfectly normal face. This half of his face looked like somebody caved it in. And that guy walked into a room. I don't think he
Yeah,
would
he was
ever
about
want,
6'6".
yeah, big as me. I could
Yeah.
feel back when I had hair on the back of my neck. I could
I
feel the
can
hair
I can give
standing
you his
up.
name because I still have nightmares about that day, how he got his face like that.
Okay, so tell as much as you want. Well, okay, you tell, and then I'll tell you. And if anybody wants to hear about my first, make that second case of schizophrenia, was an inmate
He
of
was
Caucus.
a rather low functioning smartass most of the time. And he did not distinguish between people's personalities So if he had something that he thought was going to be funny or something that he thought was going to be right, that's what he did. It didn't matter if it was with a table of white inmates, with a table of Hispanics, with a table of blacks. It didn't matter. Well, he ended up getting in some gambling debt over some of his mouth work. And that actually happened to my cell house over in East F before I came to East Cell House. Lock and a sock is what got him in the middle of the day room. That's what happened to his face. It was a padlock and a sock. He got hit 6 times. And
Did you say a padlock and a
Yes.
sock? Okay.
yes. And we were pretty sure he was dead before he left the cell house, but he came through and he was back about, I don't know, 6 weeks later, maybe. He was in the infirmary. And he was
If I recall
even worse
correctly,
off.
kind of shortish hair and some real interesting ink.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about this guy.
Yeah, no, that floor in that cell house was a mess when we came in there. I was actually standing chow when the tones went off for that one. And I was not a happy camper hearing it called in my cell house, trust me. So I think I dropped 3 people coming down the hallway into the cell house. But it is what it is. Stay out of my way. But like, that's just the way I did my job. I mean, I'm going to treat you right. I'm going to try to make sure we do things right. But when it comes down to brass tacks, I'm going to be the first one there, and I'm going to be the guy you got to go through to do anything else. Not the baddest guy in the world, but I'm going to be in your way. It was harder with policies and procedures. It's really hard to fight when you have restrictions on you. But there really wasn't no fight in that one. The fight was over when we got there. It was a beating is what it was. We knew who did it. We had the cameras. He cuffed up. He was all bloody. Pulled him out of his cell, cuffed him up. He didn't fight with us a bit. His beef wasn't with us. He told us that from the get-go. Take me to the hole. I got no problem with you guys. So we did. Of course, then we had the crime scene, almost the whole pod, that whole section, because there was just blood everywhere. So they had to do their investigation. And I think we were closed down for about 7 hours on that one. Everybody locked in their cell and had to pull them out one at a time, strip them out in showers, and then search everybody's house. Oh, just standard precaution. You have an assault like that in a general pop cell house. You don't know where weapons may have been or may still be, or where evidence may be, or who might have it or who might be involved. So everything in the cell house gets gone through. And we had 64 inmates in that section. So we knew one was in the hospital and we knew one was in the hole. So we had to deal with the other 62. But yeah, that guy was a mess. That was a mess.
Now, question for you, Van, and in your years of correctional work and in the different facilities that you worked at, is it kind of the norm when an inmate goes after another inmate, and let's say whatever that action that need to be done is done, right? Is it kind of the norm for the inmate that was the aggressor, once the attack is done and correctional officers are coming in to get them, for them to usually kind of just be like that, like, hey, look, I have no problems with you guys, cuff me up, take me what you need to do, that motherfucker got what he deserved anyways, or not so much? It's more so the fight is still going on.
I think it has more to do with the person's experience and personality than actually the action itself. A lot of times, if it was a hit like this one was, they pick somebody that they know is going to do it. They know is willing to do the time. He's already gotten paid, so he knows he's going to do the time for it. And at that point, like this guy, he was doing life without parole anyway, so it didn't cost him any time. But then you also have, and I'd say a lot of the younger fellas that do stuff like this, there's more emotion involved. In which case, I'm a white guy coming in with a bald head, and he just beat the shit out of a white guy with a bald head. So looky here, here's my next victim. And then the fight's on. Because I'm not going to lay down for it. But I think it has a lot to do with the experience and the actual inmate's personality, and probably a lot of what went in to make the situation happen to begin with. If it's something he was taking care of on his own, he's more likely to fight you when you get there.
Gotcha.
If it's somebody who got paid to do something, they're more likely to cuff up because they knew it was coming. You know you're going to get caught. You're not going to get away with it when you send an inmate to the hospital.
Right.
Because we're going to find you. There's nowhere to run. Which is something I used to laugh at when I get new officers. Well, aren't you going to chase him up the stairs? Why? Where's he going to go? All the doors are locked. I'm going to get 5 more people in here, and we're going to have one guy go up each set of 4 stairs, and I'm going to stand here in the middle and say, okay, now which set of these stairs do you want to come down? You're not going anywhere.
Right.
You can run around all day long. You're just going to go to the hole tired. I mean,
and talking about the people that come and go in those places, right?
Mhm.
I would assume coercion goes on a lot behind those cells, would they not?
Yeah.
A fresh young. I see you, Doc Barry. Let me just finish this thought. You know, a fresh young guy walks in, handsome like myself, that only has to do 6 months, and I'm out this biatch. And I jokingly say that because I've often said, like, I've done bad things, but I've done things that hopefully wouldn't land me too long in jail because I'm too little to be in jail. Like, I know that, you know. So with that being said, I would imagine coercion and you know, things like that go on. Doc Barry, you obviously have a good story to go with that. So, but yeah, go ahead. I want to hear.
Well, it's one of the many lessons Van taught me as the years have gone by. And he introduced me to the concept of, and I will have him explain it, the concept of the four-legged inmate. Take it away, Van.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The 4-legged inmate in the shower. Inmates only have 2 legs. So if you got 4 legs in a shower and one inmate scrubbing up top, one of them's bent over. They're either getting paid or they're paying for something. And it does happen. It does happen. And most of your perpetrators are long-term inmates. You do have inmates that are like that on the street, which usually is why they're inmates now. But yeah, young, cute, short time, that's bad. The good news is you're probably not going to get far enough in the system to be abused very much. Because you can say you're doing 6 months, more than likely by the time you get there, you probably got 2 or 3 months credit from a county jail that you spent time in going through your legal process. So now you're in a processing center, which is much more eyed than, say, a general pop prison unit. We never had those issues in RDU, but we were on top of everything there. You go to general pop, it's going to happen. Absolutely. And the thing that makes it worse than that is your sexual predators from the street. You know,
Right.
your child molesters. Domestic violence is frowned upon. Beating women and kids. That'll get you in all kinds of trouble once you get to prison.
Yeah.
A lot of those old timers, they take that personally because they don't have anything else to take personal.
Mm-hmm.
To that end, by the way, I had one guy come in for his interview. And this is, the honor among thieves and like a code. Sometimes, guy looked at me. He says, "Doc, I'll answer any and he was very cooperative. All the questions I had for my report. He says, if I'm put in a cell with a child molester, I'm going to kill him. Now I realize that you have to report that to security, and Doc, I want you to report that to security." And I did my job. I reported it to security, and he was very grateful. So it's really interesting. Now the other thing, as far as somebody who's very young and quote unquote pretty, my boss said, young kid coming in, he is floridly psychotic. He's inside finally because he's been medicated and trying to drink away the hallucinations. You okay with interviewing this kid? And I said, sure, why not? So he was. He'd been fresh meat, I'll tell you. So I'd ask this kid a question, okay? And this is what he would do. I said, I'd say something, what's your name? Jimmy. Hey Jimmy, how old are you? 24. So you notice there's an interval between when I ask the question and when he answers the question. So I said to him, hey man, you trust me? Yeah, I trust you. And I said, okay. Are the voices talking to you right now? Uh-huh. Will you tell me what they're saying? And within 30 seconds, it was like I was having a conversation with two people. And talk about things that make an impact. That interview went on for a while. And what was happening was the voices were getting quieter because what he was doing, he was using me to ground him. And by the end of that interview, I said, are they saying anything now? And he goes, no, they're in the background. There's just a lot of background noise. I can focus on you now.
Good.
So I had him interviewed, immediately evaluated by the psychiatrist, and they got him on some appropriate meds, and they put him in seg for his own protection. And finally, at least for this kid, somebody did the right thing. But this is a kid who did not belong in prison. This is a kid who belonged in a decently run, quite frankly, a mental hospital, because his family wouldn't have anything to do with him, taking meds, et cetera, et cetera.
And
So
if I
that
could have
was,
taken you over to the segregation houses, I could have showed you several people just like that, because they had shut down all the mental hospitals.
Yeah.
There was no place else to put these people except on the street. And you put these people on the street, they're going to get arrested for doing stupid shit that they don't know is stupid shit. And then they end up in prison.
and I think another thing I shared with you, Van, and you agreed with me, and you didn't take it the wrong way, and I'm grateful, by the way. A prison is nothing more than a poorly run mental hospital.
Yeah. It's nothing but a housing. And that's all it is. It's a place to put people that you either can't, don't feel right about, or nobody will let you kill. That's all the place is for.
Yeah.
It's not for rehabilitation, because you can't rehab people who don't want to be rehabilitated. They want out so they can continue their life. Because the ones who get rehabilitated are the ones that go and do it on their own. They don't get it from prison.
Or they'll go that one time and you'll never see them again, right?
Right. It's enough of a deterrent to say, okay, I
Right.
need to fix myself. But again, they don't rehab themselves until they get back out to the street, because the programs that they have, they're paperwork. That's what it is. It's funding and it's paperwork. It gives people jobs.
Right.
It's your volunteers are much more effective than the people they're paying. Doc, going back to the guy who wouldn't be put in a cell with a child molester, looking at that from a security standpoint versus a interviewer, there's another option to that too, if you know the prison system. He's trying to get in with the child molesters. He's trying to get a single cell. Well, if I show them that I'm not altogether there, they'll put me in protective custody so nobody comes after me. Well, who else is in protective custody? The child molesters. Yeah, they're in single cells, so he got his own house. He didn't have a roommate, but he's still going to yard with these guys. So now he's set, because now he has a whole yard full of victims. And if and when he gets caught for whatever he's trying to do, he's just going to go across the street to segregation. And he's still in lockdown and has his own cell. So, I mean, there's no downside. And that's where folks like you come in, trying to figure out which way that goes. Because you'll come to me and say, okay, this is what we got going on with this guy, so this is what we need to do. And I'm going to do that. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to do that. But I'm going to keep an eye on him. Because until he shows me something, I don't trust him. And then after he shows me something, I still don't trust him. But at least I have an idea what he's about.
Right.
You know, I think I asked you this question once. And I'll ask the other guys here, just to give an idea about prison life. If you have to go into a situation and you have one person to watch your back, and it's an inmate, do you want the guy for writing bad checks? Do you want the child molester? Or do you want the murderer? It's somebody you have to trust.
I want the guy that can bear down and make shit happen, make shit end.
How about you, Luis?
Yeah, that's a hard one, because like the child molester wouldn't survive with me. A, B, I would have a very
I didn't say it was necessarily a violent confrontation, but you were going into a situation where you have to trust one of these three people.
Yeah, I'd go with Nate, probably the murderer.
Okay, and you're both right. But now the big question is why? Over the other two, why?
I want to say because the first two have an error of their morals, whereas the murderer probably committed a crime of passion.
Right.
It doesn't mean necessarily that their morals are wrong. They just crossed a line temporarily. So they probably feel pretty strongly one way or the other about things.
How about this? I'm going to pick the murderer too, because I know what he's capable of.
Right.
I don't know if the other two are capable of stabbing me in the back, but I know this dude is. So I know what to look out for.
Yeah, that's true. It gives you your default level of watching your own back, even, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I used to ask all my new officers that when they'd come in, because I had the guys I got along best with on the galleries and on the yard were mostly murderers. But I knew what they were about, so I knew how to walk through there. I knew what to look out for, or I knew to look out.
And it's something else I didn't think of till just now, but you brought up earlier, it kind of makes me think too, is somebody who knows they're not getting to leave ever probably is the least likely to fall for stupid shit, for favors and crap like that, because it's not going to change the situation. But I would imagine, though, when it comes down to, putting up or shutting up, the put up is all or nothing.
Oh, absolutely. They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of here. This is my life. I'm locked down in segregation 23 hours a day anyhow. What more are you going to do to me when you let me out of this cell? I stab you. You going to give me another life sentence?
Yeah.
You're going to let me out I get to go to the courthouse. So I'm going to get 6 or 7 trips that I get to go see the highway and I get to drive through town. Yeah, I'm going to court, but I'm not sitting on my cell. So if I catch another charge, it actually works better for me.
Now, what has been your experience as far as like Hollywood wants to paint these anti-heroes, right? In movies where, you've got the old murderer who's been there for 40 years, he's doing life, and now he's this calm, wise, docile person. Do you see that, or do they usually stay the same person they were when they got there?
Well, I'll give you a little story here. I had a guy in segregation that he came in for murder. And he was in prison for, I want to say, less than a year after he was convicted. And he was raped by 4 inmates. Over the course of the next year, he killed all 4 of those inmates on the yard.
Wow.
And he was found guilty of those 4 murders. Fast forward 22 years, his case was overturned. His original case was overturned. Not guilty.
Wow.
And he died in prison for the 4 murders that he committed for the guys that raped him. And he was, once he was done and he had his score settled, he was kicked back. He was in segregation, of course, because he's got 5 murders under his belt as far as the state's concerned. So he was in 23-hour lockdown, and he accepted that. That was his life.
Yeah.
But he, like he said, he knew that going in. When he went after these 4 guys, he knew that that was it for him, but he wasn't going to put up with it. And he one of the calmest guys, great at chess, big reader. But I would say as people age, and I think this happens not just in prison, but as people age, I think they mellow out for the most part. Once you come to terms with, this is my life, be it on the street or in prison, this is how things go, and this is what I've got, life calms down quite a bit. And it happens in prison because all prison is a confined neighborhood. It's a population, just like if you went to a college campus and these are your dorm people, and this is where you go to the chow hall to eat, student dining, and this is where you go to class, and this is the gymnasium. Prison's the same way, except there's a fence around it. And you guys,
I'd imagine that. I'd imagine it, like you see certain guys on the yard and people will tell you their backstory, right? So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hell, we had ex-heavyweight boxers. We had a guy there that was, champ. Yeah, he was a sparring partner for George Foreman. And had 2 Navy SEALs in there. And pardon my French, but you ask him, can you give me any life advice? And he'll flat tell you. He says, the best thing I can tell you to do is don't do cocaine and beat up faggots. Because that'll get you a life sentence. And that was his whole thing. He had come to terms with what he did. He knew why he did it, because he was hooked on cocaine. Mm-hmm. And that was why they were beating these guys up and killing them, because they were robbing them. They'd set up a drug deal. They'd go out, they'd get their coke from them, they'd kill them, and then they'd take their money back. And he got caught doing it. It's good to know a lot of these guys' backstories, because just like, the question that I asked you guys, you'll learn what these guys are capable of. You don't learn much off of a charge. Like you said, Nate, a crime of passion. Well, that doesn't mean he's planning on doing it again. You know what I mean? But some of these guys,
yeah, and the guy that's embezzling, right? That's just, I'm like, okay, that's a tip of an iceberg. What I can, who knows what the world of things that they've gotten away with or might be willing to try to get away with, mm-hmm. from there.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But the more you know about people, the better you can either address them or deal with them. You know, I had guys in segregation that were brothers. I had one that was on the yard and one that was in segregation. Well, you can't pass messages to inmates. No, you're right. Would I say hi from your brother? Absolutely. If I see him, absolutely. I got no problem with that. He's your brother. Am I going to tell him something? No, not passing messages. Hi is not a message. You know
You're
what
not
I mean?
gonna
It's
tell
a
him where
greeting.
those 2 cigarettes were stashed at.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Or what's coming in through the mail, or where things are going to be hidden, or yeah, no, I'm not playing that game. But it comes back to, like me and Doc talked many times in the cell house, people are people. All prison is a situation that people are in. Now, granted, 99% of them put themselves there. But I've said this many times too. The difference between officers and inmates, for the most part, is you got caught and I got hired.
Mhm.
I've driven drunk before, so I've committed a felony. I didn't get caught for it. You know, wasn't intentional to go out and do something stupid? No, but it's amazing what alcohol can do. I got lucky and made it home.
Yeah, we said that many times, Luis and I, about our service, what
Mhm.
the things we've done versus the younger guys, right? There's no tolerance anymore for any mistakes.
Right.
And sometimes it's just a matter of I didn't get caught, and it was a blessing. And
Mhm.
somebody else got caught early on, and they got 1 year of their career, and I got 22 out of mine. And sometimes it's just a matter of chance, right? And who knows if I'd have gotten caught on something small early on, how much that would have screwed me up, and then that would have snowballed.
Oh no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's own kind of recidivism.
I got so used to the hypervigilance and the living in yellow and trying to borderline it into orange, but not quite get to red. When I was working at the prison, I worked 2 part-time jobs. I worked part-time for a bounty hunter. He'd call me when he'd find somebody, and I'd back him up to go get him. And I worked part-time as the bouncer in a gangbanger bar. I was at home, you know. It was my area. I controlled the entrances and I controlled the exits. You know, that was my thing.
How
And
often did your part-time job overlap with your full-time job? You see them on your part-time job, and then you see them in your
well,
as
it's
an
funny
inmate.
because the guy who hired me, which was the bar owner, his brother was doing life and is one of my inmates in the cell house, in the segregation house,
Wow.
which is how he found out about me. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was good for me, but at the same time, it wasn't good for me as far as home life or trying to create a home life, because there just wasn't one.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if I wasn't on edge with my hair standing on end, I wasn't happy.
Yeah. I get that. It's a lot of veterans deal with that too. Not that you want to go and do the horrible things of war, but it feels weird not being
Not
in
to.
it, even though the amount of time of your life you were in it was brief. It just feels like you fit better when you're in there.
You know your place.
And being at home, a family feels, and with the rest of the world feels out of place.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife now, I finally have a home life where I feel I'm in the right place. Unfortunately, my 5th marriage, which also is typical, but both of veterans and of corrections. But it just, I never, I was going through the motions. You know, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what society says I am supposed to do. So this is what I'm doing. But you feel out of place.
Yeah, you know how to play the role, but you don't know what it takes to be a good role player.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You know
Yeah,
the
the long
part, but
I've
you
been,
didn't read the script.
yeah, I've got 2 divorces. I've been single I think almost 9 years now. I can't do the math. 2018, and the longer I'm by myself, the more I realize, I'm like, yeah, I got no business being in somebody else's life.
Oh, no,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah, because what comes down to, I'm like, the kind of person I'd want to be with deserves somebody way better.
Well, and what I came down to after my last divorce was sold my house, bought a camper, and I moved to the lake full time. I still worked full time. I still did 80 hours a week, but I didn't go anywhere. I went back out to the lake. I packed my camper up every 2 weeks and I moved it to another spot so that I was legal. And I lived that way for 10 years. And then after me and Lindsay started dating, it was time for me to buy a new camper, and she decided to go in with it. And we were going to move in together, and she was going to buy a camper and move to the lake because that's where I was comfortable.
Yeah.
So we lived at the lake together for 3 years. And then we got married and bought a house. So it's like, you know
I
what?
understand that.
She put in the time and she proved it to me. She made me feel like
Yeah.
I was where I was supposed to be. And
Yeah,
I was
I
sold
would
at that
imagine
point.
too that by the end of your fourth, right? I've gone through this in my head. I'm like, okay, if it ever comes up again, right, and there's somebody around, like I'm gonna make sure they know all the crap that I tried to keep to myself and hide and white knuckle, and let
Yeah.
them know early on, so they can run sooner than later,
Right.
and that way, all cards are on the table. But I've even recently, I just want to backpedal and go, nope, let's go buy a piece of land, push west up into the mountains, and just sit there and wait for my Amazon drone delivery, and that's it.
Yep.
Other than that, nope, my face won't be on a single video camera for years on end.
Yeah. It helped that she watched me do my job my way for about 7, 8 years before we started dating. So she knew off the get-go that my head wasn't quite right, but whenever I was in the room, she felt safe. And that's what she was looking for.
Yeah, that's a big thing I try to teach the young guys about women. I'm like, the last thing they can feel is like you might ever be a threat to them.
Mhm.
But also, 7 or 8 years of watching you, right? She knew by then, like he can't hide anything that long. I know.
Right.
I've seen every little thing peek out that he's trying to keep to himself.
Well, and see, when I went to the county, all of our reports are computerized. So you can go in and you can pull up the day's reports and read the reports from every other officer during that day, or pick a time period, or you can actually go in and search a certain officer's reports and look at their history of reports. And she'd read a lot of my reports, and she'd heard a lot of things from her supervisors about me. One thing she still kind of laughs about is when I got my first review, when, believe it or not, after I had my last knee surgery, when I had my ACL replaced, I went out to the minimum security camp because there was no steps to get into the building, and it was all one level. So my doctor would sign off on me going back to work if I didn't have to do stairs. So there was no top tier. So I went out there, and I got along good with my lieutenant for a while. After 6 months, he brought me in to do my evaluation. He says, I want to show you something here. I'm like, okay. And he puts a piece of paper in front of me, and it's got like 3 or 4 lines on it. I'm like, okay. He says, this is a list of the use of force reports from our facility for the last 2 years. Okay. And he puts another one out in front of me, and it's like half a page. I said, okay, so what's this one? He says, this is a list of your use of force reports in the last 6 months. This is minimum security. And I'm like, do you have an issue with the way I do my job? He's like, no. I said, are the inmates acting out because of how I do my job? He says, no, you're just not fitting in. I said, I don't fit in anywhere. So you can either ship me off or you can keep me, either way.
Well, I can see where somebody fitting in and not using force can be part of the problem. Right?
Oh, absolutely it was. Absolutely it was. I got accused of chasing an inmate to his cell. When I was working the max unit down at the jail, I got accused of chasing an inmate to his cell. I said, absolutely, I did that. They said, we don't do that. You can't go after an inmate. What were you doing? I said, I wasn't doing anything. He was proving to me that he could run faster scared than I could mad. That's all he was doing. He locked himself in his cell, which is what I told him to do to begin with. And he told me to make him, which is where the running started. I took it as an invitation. And he says, we can't do that. He says, you can't go after inmates. And I'm like, Lieutenant, listen, you're not understanding something. If I wanted him, I'd have had him. Because you do realize that I had that key to that door on my belt at the time. Locking himself in his cell wasn't going to do him any good. He's like, oh, yeah. But I never had another issue with another inmate in that pod not locking down for me. Because they knew if they acted up, I was going to call them on it. I was going to do my duty, and I was going to call my code so that I could get help coming, but I was going to have this solved before they got there. And it prevents future problems. I'll take one fight for 6 months apiece. Absolutely.
You establish legitimacy, and everybody knows that when you say it, you mean it, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not going to back
weird.
off of it.
Sounds a little bit similar to parenting.
Yeah.
And world politics.
Yeah. Well, it was woke that got me retired. So a woke administration got me retired. I put my blood pressure through the roof. So
I get that.
Mhm.
the lieutenant that
thing
accused me of
I'll,
choking that inmate out did not like it when I proved him wrong and then told him, dude, I've had your job. You need to learn how to do it. And yeah, that didn't go over very well.
Yeah, that was similar to what happened to me. I said to her, you are the worst leader I've had in 32 years of the DOD. And as it was coming out of my mouth, I knew I was going to regret that for the rest of my life. Well, turns out that I'm not regretting it the rest of my life because it's what I needed, but I knew that I would regret it.
I would have regretted it if I wouldn't have said it. Because then I wouldn't have been
There
being
you
me.
go. There you go.
But I've had inmates threaten me. I've had inmates get caught on phone calls. I've had detectives from the police department call me out saying, hey, these guys are threatening to do you in. And it's like, I know him. He's a punk. And oh, it doesn't bother you? No, but you might want to tell them they might want to rethink that, because what you don't realize is I have policies and procedures here that I follow. That's how I stay employed. That's how I get my paycheck every 2 weeks. You come to my house, now we go by my rules. And I don't have the same policies and procedures we do here.
I'd imagine, too, you have something like VineLink, right, to let you know who's moving and when they're moving. And
oh, I never paid any attention to that because until we moved here, like when I worked in the prison, I lived in the hood. Most of my work was in the hood, with the bounty hunter and the bar, and that's where I lived. My neighbors were mostly gangbangers and drug dealers, and they left me alone.
That was a question I remember that I was going to ask earlier. Was that a state where the bounty hunters had more power than law enforcement?
Like
in Washington State, where I grew up, a bounty hunter can go into your house looking for somebody. They don't need a search warrant.
Yes.
They can pretty much do whatever they want.
And the reason for that is because they signed a contract on that bond.
Well, it has something to do too in Washington State. It has to do with the state constitution too. It's got some part in it that gives them more power. But so I mean, like you could go if you see or suspect an inmate is in somebody's house, a third party. You can go into that third party's house. You can force your way in. And there were some problems about 20 years ago in Washington State about how often that was being used by bounty hunters. But I think a lot of times they learned that it wasn't worth it to do it as often as they were. But
I was going
that
to
was
say,
one of the
I
things.
think they can, but I wouldn't be comfortable with that. If
Yeah.
I knew they're in there and they're not coming to the door, cool. I'm going to put one guy in the back. I'm going to put one guy in the front, and I'm going to call the cops. Come get him.
Yeah.
Here he is. You have a warrant for him, because if you didn't, I wouldn't be here.
Yep.
Funny.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, moving here was nice. It's nice to slow life down a little bit. I tried the family thing. Like I told Doc, I had kids with my even numbered wives. And I do have a good relationship with my son. Me and his mother still, I got no use for that woman, and he knows it and he understands why, but we still talk. We have a good time. He'll come up here sometimes and I'll go down there sometimes. My daughter is just like her mother and wants absolutely nothing to do with me. So she's beautiful. She's healthy. I have no problem with it. She's going to be her, and I wouldn't have it any other way. If hating me is part of being you, then so be it. I feel the same way about my entire mother's side of the family. So I never claimed to be perfect. I was the guy who went to work so other people could work to be perfect.
When I think of you in action, I think it's of the Frank Sinatra concept. You did it your way.
Yeah. I tried to do it the right way most of the time.
I know.
And I say most of the time because there are certain situations where, you know what? No. I mean, my philosophy was, if we have to come in after you, it's going to be a herd of linebackers coming through the door. If you don't stop it before that door opens, you're not going to stop it until after you're in cuffs, whether you want to or not. But again, when the door would open, they knew what was coming. I didn't make it a secret.
I think you told me once a long time ago, the third team used to use you for practice.
Oh yeah, that was great. I got to play inmate. I get to fight 5 guys and I don't have to write a report. Hell yeah. Did get out of the cell a few times too.
You did UFC for a while when it was in its infancy, right?
Not UFC, no.
Which
I
one
did
was it?
some tough man competitions.
Okay.
AKA warehouse brawls for money. That's how I paid off my first divorce.
A little bare knuckle boxing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely not something I would advise anybody to make a career out of. That shit hurts.
It's interesting you mentioned that. They're looking at the long-term effects of fighting with gloves versus fighting in MMA. And they're realizing there's a good possibility that the gloves being so thick are causing more problems because people aren't getting knocked out and going down. Instead, they're just
I can see that.
Oh wow.
In most real street fights where people know what they're doing and not swinging at each other, like a bunch of children, 1 or 2 punches and it's over, right?
Right.
As soon as somebody connects, it's a knockout.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize how easy people get knocked out, And
oh, absolutely.
all you gotta do is watch online some of the underground fight clubs, some of the ones that are on concrete have no pads at all and stuff. Those fights don't last long at all, and those guys are gassed out pretty quick too.
Oh yeah, 30 seconds is a long fight.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, if
Yeah,
you're
you
actually
can't-
going toe to toe, 30 seconds is a long fight.
Yeah, your body runs out of adrenaline pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and most of those fights are fueled by adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
You get yourself wound up beforehand so that you get that adrenal dump as soon as you get hit or as soon as you hit somebody.
Yeah. Now, I found it hard to watch. I've probably been 5 to 8 years since I've watched consistently watched any UFC fights, because as the rules kept coming in to be safer because it was more of a sport, right?
Mhm.
It just got weirder and weirder, and it wasn't what it was before. What it started out to be was who was the toughest guy.
What was it? UFC 2, I think it was. Gary Goodrich's fight, where he actually absolutely pile drive that guy with elbows, and the guy was out by the second elbow, but the ref couldn't get in there and actually stop him until like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
And the dude just laid there. Brutal. Actual hand to hand, be it bare knuckle boxing or full contact MMA, is absolutely brutal. It's brutal to watch.
Yeah, and it's, people don't realize, like, a lot of times those late hits are the guy that won't stop. It's not that he's choosing to ignore the ref. It's his mind is disconnected and the adrenaline is taken over, and
Tunnel vision.
that's why they got to physically get in there and make it stop.
He's on survival mode.
And I think that's why they call boxing the gentleman's sport.
Yeah.
Because you don't get all the blood.
Yeah.
Well, shit, back when they did 130 rounds for 18
Yeah.
hours.
I can think of those old black and white photos where the guys are boxing with their knuckles.
Yeah.
Man,
I couldn't dance good enough to be a boxer.
Yeah.
I just want to get in there and get it done, because I mean, the older I get, the longer it takes, the less chance I have of winning.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying it wouldn't hurt to get hit with boxing gloves, because I remember that even from boot camp. We had a guy that was, I don't know what level, but he was golden gloves before he joined the Marine Corps, and he was my rack mate for a while. Guy from Arkansas, and I put my head down, and he just kept putting me on top of my head, and man, it was the hardest practice I've ever felt to this day.
No, once I got into corrections, I had a few fist fights. We had a couple of disturbances when I was in Nebraska. We had one where I ended up putting handcuffs around my fist to make sure that when I connected, it was only one time I had to connect. But 3 officers, 60 inmates, we got to make a hole or we're going to be the hole. So,
in high school, it probably wasn't as unusual then, because there was people used to keep all their coins and then roll them up on their own to turn them into the bank, and nobody really does it anymore.
Yep.
But I used to always have a roll of quarters.
Absolutely. Packs a punch and keeps you from breaking your hand.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing was, believe it or not, I started studying anatomy.
I used to carry around one of those little baseball bats.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the fixed bat?
Yeah. We called them something else back then. I won't say the name of them now, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What I got to doing was I started studying my anatomy. And I come to figure out that I don't have to hit you near as hard if I know where to hit you.
Yep.
And that was one thing that opened my eyes in boot camp, learning how many pounds of pressure to tear things off and to rip things. And I'm like, no, why aren't we fighting that way?
Yeah.
It explains why across the United States there's no gyms that are specializing in Marine Corps martial arts.
Right.
It's not really compatible as a sport.
No. Your record's either going to be multiple and 0 or 0 and 1.
I remember one of my and it still sticks with me till this day. Like, and I say this, I've said it to my kids, and it's one of those things like, okay, it's not a joke anymore. Ha, Dad, we've heard you say it a million times. But it is because one of my sergeants, when I was first learning Marine Corps martial arts, the MCMAP program, um, said the only fair fight is one that I get to walk away from. I was like,
Absolutely.
that's fucking brilliant. You're absolutely
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
always remember being taught too, like when you're in a really dire position, that no matter how hard or how strong somebody is, they can't keep their eyelids closed, their lips together, or their nostrils closed.
Yep.
And so you can always hook one of them.
Yep.
I don't know how many inmates I flat told when they were threatening me. I said, you know what? You may be able to get me on the ground and you may be able to beat my ass, but you act like I'm not afraid to put my thumb in your eye and bring it out your fucking ear. I
That's
mean,
right.
you got to do what you got to do, you know.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of other things that didn't necessarily go against policy, but were a whole lot more effective than what they were teaching.
Yeah. Compliance
To that
techniques.
What's
To
that?
that end, I remember Van and I were talking. Van told me what they were teaching the up and coming guys in the academy. He had a major problem with, and I asked,
Mhm.
"What's the problem?" He says, "Because they're going to get killed."
Yeah, they teach them just enough to get themselves killed. Yep. Because you teach it once a year and nobody practices.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So in their head, they think that they're proficient, and then there's no muscle memory, and they can't do it.
And they watch and
Yeah.
they feel the reaction that their body gives to a certain strike or a certain hold, and they instantly assume that everybody else is going to react the exact same way. And humans are different.
Until you learn how to deaden nerves and stuff like that, you realize that some people can take a lot more, or
Drug
dish out a lot
users,
more.
heavy drug
Yeah.
users, alcoholics, those are
Yep.
big ones. People who have had physical injuries. I mean,
Any type
absolutely.
of mental, like, Doc, you say it better than I, but like that fucks with their mental, cognitive ability, right? They might
Mhm.
not be on any drugs or anything,
Mhm.
but their mental state could be somewhere else. Where for them, kicking them in the nuts is, why are you tickling me?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's interesting when they give you the look, and I've only seen it like once or twice. When you swear you're not in the presence of a human being, it's outwardly. They're looking through you instead
Mhm.
of at you, and their eyes are absolutely dead.
Mhm.
And now that I'm thinking about it, the guy with one side of his face caved in, if I recall correctly, if you and I are talking about the same guy, that was part of the picture. So we are
Mhm.
talking about the same guy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
as far as if I was considered what, staff or something like that,
Contract staff.
diagnosed
Mhm.
contract staff. Yeah. I will tell you one thing. I didn't feel as safe when Van shipped out. I really didn't. And I shipped out after that and turned out I was starting grad school part two. I did not feel as safe. And as far as contract staff goes, and Van, I think I've told you this story. One of the SWORT team guys, the black suits,
Mhm.
he was reading a report that I had written about an inmate, a legit report to that inmate,
Mhm.
and he still
Yeah.
had his job. And boy, I hated that guy for doing that. And boy, did I feel safe in that place after knowing that that had happened and nothing was done about it. And you probably know who I'm talking about.
I have a good idea.
Yeah.
Now you know why I
So,
left.
yeah.
Because I had stuff like that happening and I took it upstairs. And they didn't want to talk about it. So at that point, they didn't like what I had to say.
Right.
And then I started looking for a new job.
I can understand why. Not pretty.
But that's like like the use of force stuff. One of the biggest things that trying to teach people is tell the truth in your reports. Don't do anything stupid, but above all, whatever you do, make sure it looks good on camera. Whether you're doing it right or doing it wrong, make sure it looks good on camera so it can't be misinterpreted. Get somebody on the ground. They're not putting their hands behind their back. You have guys that'll sit there and just throw haymakers into their rib cage, trying to get them to pull their arm out. And I'm not going to say it's not effective sometimes, but if you ever watched a video of something like that, that looks horrible to the public because that's who's going to be watching.
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, that's what I was
I
going
would
to say.
imagine the inmates are aware of that too, right? What looks good and what
Exactly.
doesn't.
And that's why a lot of them didn't like me, because I didn't do that. I watched my anatomy. I figured it out. If you take your thumb and stick it in between two ribs and twist, you'll get their attention. You start pulling those ribs apart while they're still awake, and they know you're there. Problem solved, but it looks great on camera because I just stuck my hand in there and the arm popped out. Cool. Cuff it. And we're on. Escorts, the same way. You hold them by the upper arm. That looks great on camera and you have control. If they're being an asshole, reach up there and get a little bit of pit hair and skin and pinch and twist. They'll go up on their toes
my mom-
and you still look good on camera.
My Asian moms are really good with transport. She used to grab my ear, and it would till this day, the only time in my life my ears would ever pop. She'd
Yeah.
pull it, and it wouldn't pop like air pressure. Something would pop in my ear,
Like
and it
popping
would
your
get
knuckle.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would pop like that, and it's the only time in my life it ever happened was my mom would do it. But she could walk around and do whatever, and I would follow her with my head down low wherever she wanted me to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's rule 2. Where the head goes, the body will follow.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
She was popping that cartilage in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
Surprised you don't
Yeah.
have cauliflower ear.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? How'd you get that? Did you wrestle? Not a single day.
Yeah. Mama
Oh,
taught
Tiger
me
Mom.
that.
Mama taught me that, right?
Yep.
These are lessons from Mama.
Right. This is how I learned to be good.
Well, her wrestling name was the Mominator.
Right. No, I think corrections was good for me until it wasn't.
Okay.
And it wasn't once the wokeness started. Once the inmates started having more rights than the officers, and security didn't run the place. Once security doesn't run a secure facility, it's bound for failure. Somebody's
Yeah, it
gonna
sounds
get
like
hurt.
danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be there while it tries to self-correct either.
Right.
Well, they didn't like it too well the night that I had to call a code officer assistance call for a guy at 2:30 in the morning because he didn't want to get in his bunk. You can't make me. Cool. You're right. I can't. Let's go. You're leaving. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. So we go through the whole thing, and that's the inmate that I was accused of choking. Guy 6 foot tall, 250, pretty stacked, about 30 years old. And I went into the lieutenant's office the next day, and I'm like, you know what? Why am I, as a 55-year-old man, having a fist fight a 30-year-old guy that's in much better shape than I am, has much better joints than I am, while 4 officers stand there and watch? Why is that happening? And nothing's happened about it, other than I get accused of choking an inmate out, which I didn't.
Wow.
And I was basically
Yeah,
told
were
to
they
go on about my business.
they standing by due to policy or because they just didn't feel like they needed to do anything?
They didn't feel like they needed to do anything. No harm, no foul. I got the job done. And that's the exact way they looked at it. It was ridiculous. Working the kitchen during Ramadan, and Ramadan is a big thing in correctional facilities. You want to talk about religious rights? Ramadan meals have to be served at a certain time in the morning. I was in the kitchen getting with the kitchen staff, who are contract staff. I need my Ramadan meals at this time. Well, they're probably going to be about 15 minutes late. No, they're not. I don't care
Especially
how
that
you
morning
do
meal.
it.
That morning meal can't be late.
Right.
Yep.
You do whatever you need to do, but you're going to ship me my meals by this time. End of story. So stop acting like an inmate and go do your job. Well, I got written up for calling him an inmate, for saying he was acting like an inmate. Well, they wanted to write me up for being racist. But the problem was, yes, the
Written up
staff
with
member
hurt
that I
feelings.
talked, staff member was black that I was talking to. But they realized they couldn't write me up because I was defending 6 other black inmates. And I told them flat out when I took the write up, this is a load of crap. And the only reason I'm getting this write up is because I took care of the situation, I solved the situation, and I accomplished the mission. If I'd have let him do what he wanted to do, you'd have wrote me up because the meals were late. I wasn't getting out of a write up. And there's no reason for that kind of crap. When you put your staff in a no-win situation, you're not going to keep staff and you're not going to get good staff. And if you can't keep them, they're never going to be good.
Yeah, to that end, I can attest from seeing it in person. Folks, anybody who's listening to this pod or this webcast going forward, the media, and it doesn't matter what source, they all do a terrible job of describing what goes on inside a prison or inside a jail. Don't believe what you're reading, please.
The sad part is a lot of them go back to, and I want to say it was Edgar Allan Poe who said it. If you want to see the dregs of the society, just go down to your local jail or prison and watch shift change.
Can you
And that's the way it's
describe for
perceived.
people?
What's that?
Can you describe for people? Can you describe for people what that means? Watching shift change. What is it they'll see?
They're going to see the officers. They won't see the inmates. And the whole point was that the officers are worse than the inmates. And to a certain extent, I won't argue with that because inmates were sentenced to be there and they were forced to be housed there. I show up every day by choice. Nobody forces me into that place. So there's definitely a mindset that I can understand the statement. But at the same time, I've also told, I don't know how many people, when they got on their little woke stuff, let them out. You don't like the prisons? Let them out. I'll be fine. They know me. Let them out. I'm cool with that. I'll go find another job. I don't have any problem with that. But yet nobody wants to do that. And I would tell people when they would come in, my new officers, when I would train them, just be advised that whatever, because a lot of people would have criminal justice degrees. Welcome to the one job in the criminal justice system where you are not allowed by policy to use your degree. Because you have policies and procedures you have to go by. You're also going to be doing a job that nobody wants to do, everybody wants done, and nobody wants to pay for.
Yeah, that brings up another point. The every year, the top 2 most useless degrees in the United States are communications and criminal justice. Not because the degree itself is useless, but the number of people who are getting them far outstrip the number of jobs that actually require it.
Yep.
But there's so many people who think that because now they got a criminal justice degree, they're an expert.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've trained a lot of stupid people with master's degrees.
Stupid, smart people are the worst types.
Mm-hmm. I've had people straight up tell me, I know what I'm doing. I went to school for this. I've got a master's degree. Cool. You walk in there and run that pod. I'll stand out here. Nobody ever wants to take you up on that one, though.
Van, you had mentioned some earlier about the Ramadan and the meals and all that, and it just got me thinking. So is it and to any of our audience members, present and or future, please excuse my naiveness and my ignorance. Um, Besides Ramadan, is there any other dietary restrictions due to religion, like kosher, that you guys
Mhm.
have to deal with there in prison in the system? And then how do y'all take care of those
Uh,
special
kosher
inmates?
meals,
I'm
kosher
sorry.
meals are usually shipped in. They're not made in the facility. They would be like, for lack of better terms, like a TV dinner.
Right, because not even
They
like the
were made
utensils.
kosher and then sent to us.
Right, because not even the utensils can be cross contaminated, or
Right.
the stove or oven. Okay, so those
Mhm.
get shipped in. Okay,
So basically, they got thrown in
Yeah.
the microwave, is what happened. And then the
And
inmates would get them
better,
still wrapped.
gotcha.
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember, but I was a Muslim before briefly. And if something is certified as kosher, then Muslims can eat it too.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
they're held to a high enough standard. But if something is halal for Muslims, it's not
Not
necessarily
kosher.
kosher. Yeah,
Got it.
there's the standards are a little bit different. But you're right with the cross contamination. Really devout Muslims won't even they won't eat off of us. Hey, I know you just cut chicken on that surface, but how do I know that you weren't cutting pork on it earlier?
Understood.
And the
Yeah.
easy answer, which is, I would be willing to say pretty much nationwide, we don't serve pork. That's how we know it's not cross contaminated. We don't serve pork,
Yeah,
period, in anything.
that would solve an issue right there, huh?
Right. And actually, I was at El Dorado when that nightmare came up, when the inmates found out, of course, before the staff. Did you know that Jello used to have pork byproducts in it?
Yep. Gelatin. Most gelatins in the United States are made from. Well, first of all,
Hooves.
if you do a Wikipedia search and learn how gelatin is made, you're going like, who? First of all, who came up with that idea?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but you can get gelatin that's halal and kosher, but it's a lot more expensive and it's a lot more rare.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is at a time where you're going to have Jello on a tray at least once every other day,
Right. I would imagine
because it
Jello.
was cheap to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when that came out, oh, good Lord, I was working seg unit at the time, and we just had trays going everywhere. They'd come flying out of those beanholes.
And so then in the correctional department, is it kind of like in the military where and I forgot how many, but like the military states, and I'm not sure if it's the military that puts it out there or if it's like I guess the government, DOD, where they put out like there's only 25 recognized religions. Um and so like, someone that goes into the prison system, they can't say like, "Oh, I'm this religion and my accommodations are this." And people are like, "We've never even heard of this shit." Like prove
Yeah,
it
it has
as
to
the
be an
religion.
approved religion. Yes.
Okay, so y'all have an approved list of religions.
Yes.
Got it.
Because there was a big fight, late 90s, over Satanism.
Mm,
It
And
must have
it
been
was
a hell of a
recognized
fight.
as a religion. It was recognized as a religion.
right, I was gonna
But
say Satanism is right. Go ahead.
but like several, a lot of their uh ceremonies, um not that they weren't allowed, but the items that their text said they needed for those ceremonies were not allowed,
Mm,
because a lot of them have human blood or sharp objects. You're
bones.
supposed to cut the palm of your hand and put it in a bowl or something
Right.
like that. And that's where the give and take was. Yes, you can practice this, do whatever it is you want to do. As far as like your ceremonies, we'll give you what we will allow you to have per security. Because whenever the chaplain would approve something, he would send the major, I think is who it was, or might have been a deputy warden at the time, to approve or disapprove the items that would be used in this ceremony if they were on the street. And sometimes it was fine and sometimes it wasn't. But that's back again when security ran the facility.
Right.
Because Doc was there. He understands if you don't have good security, you don't have anything.
Hmm.
Right.
Because the chow hall people aren't going to do you any good. The counselors aren't going to do you any good. The nurses aren't going to do you any good if you don't have somebody to enforce what the inmates can do. Because these guys have already proven on the streets that they can't do what they're supposed to do. That's why they're here. They're not good at following directions.
That's quite an overlap with a lot of the stuff the military does. Going
I've
into
heard a lot of
countries where the government's collapsed, and the first thing you got to, before you can think about anything else, you've got to get a sense of security going, where people feel safe enough to do anything, and then can even think about, trying to bring a normal life around.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
Funny.
think the biggest thing I've had to try to adjust to since we moved down here, and me and Lindsay have been together, is trying to wrap my head around what a normal life is. Because I've never had one.
And that leads me to kind of like a wind down question, because we've been at this almost 2 hours and it's been great. Hey,
yeah.
Van, for somebody such as yourself, whom I would consider hardcore corrections, after 30 years, what's your second act? How do you discover what you want to do going forward?
Well, that's what I'm working on. My wife is convinced that until further notice, I do not belong employed by anyone else, and I do not belong in public unescorted. So, and me knowing me, I'm not going to argue with that. I completely get her point, because either one of those is very easily likely to lead to me not being here to make her safe. I've got my welding that I do, got my metal work, my metal fab that I do, which I really enjoy, which I can't do because of the medical restrictions I'm on right now. I got my outdoor kitchen built, so I've got my barbecues. Still do don't do as much as I used to. I probably did 200 pounds of barbecue last year, whereas normally for the last 20 years, I've been doing about 400 pounds every 2 weeks. So, I still get to play with that. I build barbecues for people, and I got my garden going, which of course is what ended up putting me in this mess to begin with, was getting my garden ready. That was probably the worst part of my summer, believe it or not, is sitting here looking out the window at my garden and all the weeds. Because I got 4 cucumbers and 1 squash out of my garden this year. That was it.
Mm,
There was nobody to go out there to weed it. My wife still works 60 hours a week.
right.
I don't expect her to do any of that.
That's one of the things I can attest to. One thing Van can do, many things that he can do extremely well, and that is cook. And he has sent my family and me some just on beyond zebra outstanding barbecue all the way from Nebraska. And it's phenomenal. It's through the roof.
Thank you.
We owe you one, man. We really owe you one.
I'm thinking about that welding and the custom barbecues. Like, that's got me. I envy anybody who can weld. When Luis was going through it, I was like, man, I want to be able to do that. And gosh, I'd love to be able to weld, let alone I never even thought about making your own barbecue.
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
I'm
when I bought my
so sick
first
of buying
barbecue,
prefab.
it was just a little cheap one.
Ago.
And watching videos and stuff about how to run them and things like that, it's like, well, I need to modify it this way to make it run better. And then that just turned into, why am I going to buy somebody else's when I know how to make it? I bought a Yoder, and I spent $2,000 on it, pellet grill, beautiful grill. And the first thing I did was I came home and I modified it. And I called the guys I bought it from, the store I bought it from, and he knew me pretty good because I'd been in there several times. And he got to where when I would come in there, and this was down in Wichita, when I'd go down there to see my dad, we'd always go down to All Things Barbecue. And he'd come over and he'd put his arm around me and he'd call this new guy over. He says, I want to introduce you to the guy that comes down here knowing he's going to spend $4,000 on a smoker so he can take it home and cut it apart. I'm like, yeah, but your smokers don't run as good as mine.
Yeah, let me know when you go into the barbecue building business, man.
Oh, anything
Might
you
have to
want,
swing
just let me
through.
know. I do special orders. That's all I do is I do special orders.
Sometime when I'm swinging through there, maybe on the way to Luis's or something.
Absolutely.
What,
Absolutely. Just let me know what kind of fuel you want and what kind of space you want, and I'll just
yeah,
send you a drawing.
I'm gonna have to put in my order. But then before we wrap up, what part of Nebraska you out of?
We are in Nebraska City now.
Okay.
We are just 2 miles from I-29, right down the corner of Iowa and Nebraska and Missouri.
Okay. I got a really good friend of mine, and when I mean good friend of mine, I mean we're in 25. So you're talking about I've known this gentleman 22 years, 23 years from when I first joined the service. Lives in Lay, Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all
What part?
farm. It's all farm country out there, man.
I was just saying that's out west, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm completely on
like-
the opposite end of the state.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's like 2 hours west of Lincoln, I believe. But yeah, it's all.
In fact, if you look up, like you were talking about, knowing about like some serial killers, if you look up the Rulo murders, Posse Comitatus,
The what murders?
Rulo, Rulo, Nebraska.
Okay, got it.
What was
I like
his
looking
name?
up
John
that stuff.
Ryan. Yeah, Michael Ryan. He's on death. He was on death row anyway when I was working it. We are basically straight north of there, 60 miles.
Wow, quadruple homicide, huh?
Yep.
All right. No, but I was just wondering because I got a buddy that lives out there, but like I said, it's a little town, Lay, Nebraska. It's a population of all of like 500 people.
Yeah, and we have 7,200 people here.
Got it. So y'all are big city compared to him.
Oh yeah, I grew up in Walton. That was population 49. So
Oh, wow.
no, I don't like big cities. I mean, this is just the right size for me.
Yeah.
This is about as big as I want it to get.
I hear you. Well, right on. Well, I
Just
appreciate
big
you
enough I
coming
can
on,
find
man.
something and still small enough I can be lost.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming on, Van. It was an
Yeah.
enjoyable evening.
Heck
Great
yeah.
to have you
Anytime,
on board.
guys.
It's been a while, and so glad
Yeah,
to have you back on, especially now that our video and audio is a lot better than it was 3 years ago. So,
Hey, everybody's
he's
gonna
one of
start
our-
somewhere, right?
yes, sir.
Yep.
Well, boys,
All right,
I
guys.
got anything left for Van or for our audience before we sign off?
Well,
Nothing I can think of.
hey Van, stay on with us when we sign off.
No problem.
Just a
All
minute.
right. With that, everyone, we wish you all a very great evening. If you made it this far in our podcast, please, as we always ask, like, subscribe, support our channel. We really do appreciate it. In order to start getting out start the conversation on mental health. That's where we begin this fight. With the holidays coming around, please, hold your loved ones a little bit tighter during these seasons. They're always hard. For those that have lost loved ones around this time of the year, or those that are facing difficulties during this time of the year. Please do not hesitate to reach out to somebody to ask for some help. It is not a sign of weakness. Matter of fact, it takes a lot of strength and courage to finally admit to someone that you're in a desperate need. So please, from all of us here at Two Docs and a Grunt, we wish you all the very best holiday season. And during this time, do not hesitate to reach out for that help if you need it. With that being said, everyone have a great evening and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you.